So bending your knees, your hands can be behind you on the floor or on your blanket, feet wider than hip distance. I'm going to let my knees tip to the right. So right leg's externally rotating, right, moving away from the pubis, even though the pubis is following, and the left leg is internally rotating. I just want to get that nice feeling of moving the knee towards the floor and almost turning the femur towards the pubis, towards the pelvis, and then up and to the other side. Good, and up. And first side again. If the hands are on the floor, again, as that left thigh comes down, maybe letting the hips stay down and feeling what happens in the femur, the upper femur. And then maybe letting the pelvis turn, feeling what happens in that upper arm, shoulder. And then backtrack, let that left sitting bone come towards the floor. Knees come up and over to the other side. Right thigh, knee towards the floor. And keeping that right sitting bone heavy, right? So you feel that movement or that activity in the top of that right thigh. And then let the pelvis turn, maybe more, to the left as that right hand stays heavy, as the ribs turn, feeling that relationship between upper arm, ribs, front shoulder. Good, and then right hip comes back down, feeling the relationship in femur to pelvis. One more time, up and over. Right side. Feeling right thigh heavy, right sitting bone heavy, left sitting bone heavy to start. And then maybe going a little bit further, if that feels okay. Nice and slow. And then left sitting bone back to the floor. And then knees up and over to the other side. Again, right sitting bone heavy to start, feeling that relationship femur to pelvis. And then as you turn the pelvis, feeling the relationship pelvis, torso, shoulder, arm. And then slowly come back. And come back up to center. Good, stretch your legs forward for a moment. And then bend your knees again. Okay, and let's pull the feet just a little closer. So as I take the knees, actually we're going to do one thing before we start that. So I'm going to sit cross-legged. So it doesn't matter how you sit, you will change. So I'm going to take my blanket, and I have it folded this way so that I have kind of two layers of blanket. Right, so this is folded in quarters, I think, and then folded in half again. And I'm gonna put this height under my right sitting bone. So if that feels like that's too high, you can open up the blanket and just put one layer under your right sitting bone. So left sitting bone is gonna be on the floor, right sitting bone is gonna be on the blanket. And I'm just gonna grab my blocks to help me. All right, so first thing, just closing your eyes and feeling, right, this asymmetry in your pelvis. And can you let your inhale drop towards your right sitting bone, towards your left sitting bone? They're on different planes. And then as if you could, right, baby cat-cow, right, feel both sitting bones move. Right, let's start with a little posterior tilt. So we're gonna almost slide the sitting bones forward towards the legs. Pubis will tip up a little bit. And then slide the sitting bones back. Tailbone and sitting bones almost pull back towards the wall behind you. And then sitting bones forward. Right, a little posterior tilt, back starts to round. And then slide sitting bones back, as if sticking your butt back. And then come back to center. And again, feel your inhale drop towards the sitting bones. Okay, I'm just having my hands on the block, so I use less effort in the pelvic muscles and right, not so much effort through the arms. I just want to minimize all of the effort. So because my left sitting bone is heavy already, I'm just going to shift my weight to my left sitting bone and just slowly start to lift some of the weight off the right sitting bone. Right, so there's a little bit of a hip hike. That right hip starts to lift towards the right ribs, just ever so slightly, very subtle. And then I'm just going to slowly, slowly, slowly let that right sitting bone come back onto the blanket, shift my weight towards neutral, even though I'm asymmetrical. And then I'm going to try to do the opposite. I'm going to try to slowly pick up that left sitting bone, super slow. My left hand is helping. Again, there's a little bit of a hiking that left hip towards the left side of the rib cage, a little bit of a side bend on that left side, and minimal, the least amount of effort I can do. And then slow, this is really interesting part, slowly, slowly let that left hip come back to the floor. The slower you go, the longer the way down it feels. One more time, shifting onto that left sitting bone, lifting that right sitting bone. And again, if it feels hard, there's a lot happening in my pelvis. If it feels hard, do less, move slower, but still move. Minimal effort. Notice your breath, right? Sometimes when something's challenging, we hold the breath. And then slowly, 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 slowly let that right hip come back onto the blanket, shift towards neutral, and then lifting slowly. Just again, using my hands on the block just to minimize the effort in my pelvis, picking that left sitting bone up, little bit of a hip hike. My ribs are shifting to the right. Good, and then slowly, slowly, slowly lower down. One more time, just dropping the breath into the sitting bones. You can even bring your hands back on your thighs or on the blocks. And just a couple more, right posterior tilt, sitting bones slide forward as the back rounds. Small, doesn't have to be a lot of movement. And then slowly come back up to neutral, right? So we're basically rolling towards the back of the sitting bone, rolling towards the center, and then rolling towards the front of the sitting bone as that back part of the sitting bone sticks back or slides back, as if you're sticking your butt back, right? So there's more extension in that lower back or back bend, minimal. One more, sitting bones forward or rolling to the back of the sitting bones towards the tailbone, and then rolling center of the sitting bone towards the front pubic bone, tailbone back and up. Center. Let's take the blanket out from under your right sitting bone and just notice what you notice. And breathe. Okay, blanket on the other side, just under that left sitting bone. Again, once you're settled, pause. Let's change the cross of the legs. And pause, breathe, dropping your breath. Finding your sitting bones with your inhale. Good, and then again, that slight posterior tilt, or shifting the weight back towards the tailbone, and then rolling up onto the center and forward towards the pubic bone. And center and back towards the tailbone, posterior tilt, and up to center, rolling forward towards the pubis. And back to center, right? And becoming more familiar with your center. Some of us naturally are predisposed to a posterior tilt, and some of us more predisposed to an anterior tilt. And see if you can feel that. See where your body feels most aligned or neutral or integrated. Big words, I know. Okay, so my left sitting bone's already lifted, so I'm just going to shift my weight onto my right sitting bone. Minimal effort. I am moving, right? My ribs are shifting to the right. My left hip is hiking up towards my left ribs. But minimal effort. I feel a lot. It doesn't take much. And then slowly lower the pelvis. Left sitting bone back onto the blanket, shifting back towards neutral. And then other side. Right sitting bone lifts. Right, the hips gently, minimally hikes towards the ribs. Right, I've definitely shifted to the left. And then slow, 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 slow. Lower that sitting bone down. I have a lot more sensation on this side, right, just different, more tightness on this side. Right sitting bone down. Left sitting bone lifts. And shoulders are soft, hands are soft. There's still effort, but it's minimal. Slow. Again, that sense of micro movements. It's a little harder because we're upright. And these are bigger movements. Slowly lowering that left sitting bone down. Or more engaged movements. And then slowly tipping onto that left sitting bone. And lifting right sitting bone slowly. Again, hiking the hip up towards the rib cage. And then as you lower it, slow it down. Let the pelvis almost hang off the ribs. Hang, hang, hang. And settle it down. Good. Hands back on your thighs if you can. If you need to stay on the blocks, that's fine. Again, inhale drops to your sitting bones. And then one more time, posterior tilt. Roll towards the back of the sitting bones. And then reverse that towards the center, towards the pubis. Center. Posterior. From sitting a lot, we tend to become more skilled in posterior. And back towards center, or forward towards center, and forward towards pubis. Good. Finding your neutral. Again, drop your inhale towards your sitting bones. Good. And then both sitting bones on the floor, take your blanket out and just notice what you notice. Everywhere, pelvic floor or sitting bone area, back of pelvis, lower back. See if you can let your breath fill out your lower back and back lower ribs. Okay, walks off to the side. So one more time, hands behind you, knees bent, feet flat on the floor, so feet close to the body. And I'm going to let both knees shift to the right. So one leg is in Baddha Konasana, or an external rotation, and one leg is in Virasana, or internal rotation. It helps if the feet are closer to the body, and if you still feel very asymmetrical, you can slide your blanket under both sitting bones. You can even use a corner, right, just tucking the corner under, so you have, right, a little triangle under your pubis and under your sitting bones. Okay. All right. So this time I'm going to use hands on the floor. If you need the extra height, you can use hands on blocks. And similar, I'm just going to shift my weight towards my right sitting bone, letting my left sitting bone get light. Smaller movements here. But my left hip is still hiking slightly. And then slowly, slowly lower that left sitting bone. Find center, and then starting to lift that right sitting bone. Easy, easy. I'm using my hand to help me. Left sitting bone is heavier, right sitting bone is lighter. And then slowly, right, keeping the engagement of the tissue minimal as I lower that right sitting bone down. And then simple, I'm just going to bring left hand to the outside of that right thigh. You can use a block under your right hand. Simple little twist, left hand, right thigh. Keeping that left sitting bone on the floor for a moment. And breathing into back lower ribs. And then I'm going to let that left sitting bone come up, and I'm going to let the pelvis turn to the right and the ribs turn to the right. And just for a moment, I'm going to look back at my left knee or over my left shoulder and turn the pelvis even more. Maybe even remind that left foot to press into the floor a little as the pelvis turns away. And then take the head, long neck as you turn and look over the right shoulder. Good, and then slowly descend that left sitting bone. Again, breathing into the ribs. And come back to center. Other side, right hand comes to the outside of the left leg. Left hand behind you on a block or on the floor. Again, there's a little press into the feet to get longer as you turn. Again, I'm going to use, so it's much harder to lift the pelvis and turn it to the left. So I am going to play with looking back at my right knee over that right shoulder. Again, putting a little weight in that right foot and then turning away. And then lengthen the neck. Turn, look over the left shoulder. Again, notice what the breath can do. Where can it move? Notice what's easy, and then notice what might actually feel good. Lower back, back ribs, side ribs. Fill out that breath. And come back to center. One more easy twist to the right. Left sitting bone heavy to start. Notice how the legs have to organize to keep that left sitting bone down. And then let it lift and turn. Again, maybe use the eyes, looking back at that left leg. Sometimes I get more turn when I do that. And then look over the right. Slowly sink that left sitting bone down. Untwist center. Other side again. Right hand, left outer leg. Lengthen. Minimal effort. Keep it soft. Keep it gentle. Right? And sometimes the slower and softer we go, we feel more. We feel more and we soften more. Maybe looking back for a moment just to get that movement in the shoulders and the neck and the head. And then lengthen. Lengthen the back of the body, sides, front. Remember that sense of breathing into the skin of the back, around the back of the spine, back of the neck. And then slowly come back to center. Good, hands behind you for a moment. Pick your knees up and let's shift to the other side. So feet close. Knees can possibly go wider. Can go with what feels right. Knees closer, knees wider. If you need a blanket under your sitting bones, pause for a moment. Hands, walk the hands wide. Just fingertips on the floor for support. Right, just noticing what sitting bone is already heavy. It's my left, so I'm just going to go ahead and lift that right sitting bone ever so slightly. Shifting the weight onto that left sitting bone and left thigh. And then as I roll back, roll that right sitting bone down. Again, just a little bit of a hip hike on that left side. Right, much more challenging, but you can feel more weight come onto the right sitting bone as you try. Maybe not much happens. And then slowly lower. Let's do one more. Left sitting bone down, right sitting bone up. Slow, soft, steady. Slowly descend that right sitting bone. Lifting left sitting bone. And center. Okay. Twisting. Right hand outside of the left leg. Long. So the arms really just help you find length through, especially the back body. Right, it's easy to kind of lift the chest. So can you lift the back ribs, lift the back of the neck, lift the back of the head. Maybe look over the right shoulder. Put a little weight in that right foot and then lengthen and turn. Right hip comes off the floor and then let that right hip slowly descend and slowly untwist. Other side, left hand, right leg. Again, finding the length. Both sitting bones will stay on the floor. Just keeping the tissue soft around the sitting bones. Maybe look over the back shoulder just to release some tension around the neck, upper back. Good. As you lift and turn, let the ribs and neck stay soft. Pelvic floor stay soft. Back body stay receptive to the breath. You can even do a little shift the ribs to the right, shift the ribs to the left, or circle with the ribs, just to change the movement pattern. And release. First side again. Simple, simple. Keeping right sitting bone down for a moment. Feel the back of the body, back of head, back of the rib cage, lower back, pelvis. And then lift that right sitting bone and turn a little more. Maybe look over the right shoulder. Just to change how the back is moving. And then lengthen, lift and turn to the left. Right sitting bone slowly descends. Center. Other side. Left hand, right leg, lengthen. Maybe look back for a moment just to keep the neck soft. Let the ribs try to find the movement. Let the breath try to find the movement. Go in slowly and easily. And then come back to center. Okay, lean back, pick the knees up again, and stretch the legs forward. Okay, so simple movement. You can sit on a blanket if you need to, right? If you feel like you're falling back towards your tailbone and your back is rounding, you can put a blanket under your sitting bones. Neck nice and long, spine nice and long. I'm just going to drop my chin to my chest. Let my back round. Let the crown of the head almost curl in towards the pubic bone. And then start to lengthen the crown of the head out towards the toes. Keep lengthening out. And then slowly come up through a flat back. One more time, chin to chest, rounding forward. Crown of the head towards the pubis. Take a breath or two here, just feel that fullness in the back body, back of neck, back of ribs, lower back. And then start to reach the crown of the head forward. Keep curling or reaching forward with the crown of the head, the neck, then the spine, and come up through a flat back. Good. And then come down through a flat back, looking towards the toes maybe, or crown of the head reaching past the toes. Good. Keep reaching, and then curl round in, bringing the crown of the head towards the pelvis, and then slowly round up. Okay, so let's do baby blocks handy on your right side. So I'm going to bend my knees and I'm just going to tip my feet or bring my feet to the left side of my body. Okay, and right forearm on the floor. And little side bend for a moment. Let's take that left arm up to the ceiling. And then left arm up and over. So I'm actually rolling towards my sitting bones so that I can deepen the curve, right, of the inner curve. So the right ribs tuck down and in towards the right side of the pelvis. So there's a big arc on the left side and a short arc on the right side. Right, and I can do the opposite. I can roll towards the outer hip and take that left arm up. And then roll towards the sitting bones and arc over. And just take a few breaths here. If this feels weird on your neck, right, if you can let your neck or head fall to the right, great. If that feels weird, you can take that left hand and hold the head. And so the arm and the head go kind of slowly with time over to the right. And I'm still rolling towards the sitting bones just to get that nice stretch through the outer waist. And then I'm going to let my rib cage turn towards the floor and bring my left forearm towards the floor. So my forearms are somewhat parallel. And then I'm just going to again roll, right, as if I'm rolling up the outer thigh. So I'm pulling my rib cage forward. My eyes come forward towards my fingers, and my right waist is now longer because I'm up on my outer thigh, almost towards the top of the thigh. And then I'm going to roll again towards the sitting bones, towards the bottom of the thigh, and let the spine round. Let the head drop. Fill out the back ribs. All right, a little bit of a cat position, and then start to, with the arms, pull the ribs forward. A little bit of a cat shape, shoulder blades move down, crown of the head moves forward. And mini, mini cat. Pushing forward with the arms down and forward as the back rounds. Head drops. Sitting bones heavy. And then from the round shape, I'm going to again come back into this left arm up to the ceiling. And just one thread the needle from here. So left arm comes under the ribs. Under this little space between the right arm and the right ribs. Just reaching. So I'm just turning the ribs to the right. Left arm is reaching towards the right side of the room. Breathing. Left arm comes back up. One more time, my side bend. Again, rolling towards my sitting bones. Right, so my right arm is actually pressing down and away from me, right, to get that big arc on the left side. And then again, just a little turn towards the floor, left hand down, and push yourself up to sit. Right, we're right here for Bharadvajasana, left hand, right leg, just a simple, really simple. You can even turn the head to look over the back, left shoulder, or just have the head neutral, or slowly turn to the right. And then center, stretch the legs forward, the knees up again, feet to the other side. Okay, so coming down onto my left forearm, right arm up to the ceiling. So let's just keep the hand down for a moment and roll sitting bones towards the floor so you feel that side bend. Feel that the arm moving away from the ribs. And then the opposite, right? Rolling towards the outer hip. Ribs come closer to the arm. And then again, right arm up. Rolling the pelvis towards the sitting bones. Right arm over. If you can let the head drop towards the floor, great. If you want to hold the head with the right hand and slowly descend. Slowly breathe. One more breath here. And let's take the right hand to the floor. Right forearm parallel to the left forearm. And a little different than the other side. Let's just shift the ribs to the right and shift the ribs to the left. Doesn't have to be big. It's just more a sense of direction. Right, noticing which one is easier, noticing what happens with the breath. Coming to neutral. Again, these movements can be very small and very slow. I'm just pulling, right? So pulling the forearms down and towards the legs to send my ribs forward. Small movement. I'm just elongating the spine. Rolling onto my outer left hip, thigh. And then pressing down, pressing the arms away, rolling back to a flexion or a round shape, cat shape. Again, it doesn't have to be to your end range or to a lot of sensation. Sometimes less sensation is more. Sliding forward and sliding back into a round shape. And left forearm stays on the floor, right arm comes back up. And even here, simple, right arm threads under. Maybe the breath does more work than muscular effort. Maybe the breath finds, where is the breath easy? Where is it hard? Or can I breathe in this shape? Right arm back up to the ceiling, right arm over again. Again, you can hold your head. And then slowly turn towards the floor. Right hand comes down, press yourself back up to sit. Okay, so let's come into just a simple neutral child's pose. So knees slightly apart, toes together, and walk the hands forward. So elbows start off the floor, just to get some breath space into that armpit area, under shoulders, side ribs. Letting the breath be full and rich, but diffuse, gentle, easy. Good. And just walk the hand back under the shoulders and round yourself up to sit. Okay, so I am going to come onto my belly just for a few moment. I'm going to turn my mat just so you can have a different perspective. Okay, so I'm on my belly, but I'm also on my forearms. And I'm just going to press a little into the heel of the hand, the ball of the hand, and the finger pads. Right, and even that can just be a different engagement in the shoulder that we're not used to. And then from here, I'm just going to play with trying to squeeze the shoulder blades together slowly. I'm watching right side, left side. And then spread shoulder blades apart. However you can do that, squeeze the shoulder blades towards the spine, around the back of the rib cage, in towards that center line, and wide. Again, doesn't have to be your biggest, strongest movement. Maybe just notice how the shoulder blades are moving. I'm noticing mine are moving very differently, right and left. Last time. And then take the elbows wide, let the hands stack, and I'm going to put let's go ahead and put left cheek on the back of your hand. And you may have a favorite side to turn to, or maybe both don't feel good. But just breathe. Try to let the weight of the head settle into the hands. Try to let the shoulder blades soften on the ribs, the arms soften, the head get heavy. Good, and then we're just going to play with, so my right hand is on top of my left hand, and my left cheek is on the back of the right hand. So I'm just going to play with putting a little weight into my elbows, both of them forearms. And I'm just going to play with lifting my head up, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I'm still rotated, but I'm just going to lift the head 1/8 of an inch off the hand. Maybe I still feel the skin of the hand. And then I'm just going to look over that right shoulder. Maybe nothing moves. And then slowly, slowly, slowly lay the head back down. Good. One more time. Slow, slow, slow. Like watching ants carry leaves. Right, so some weight comes into the forearms, just a little bit. Some weight comes into the pelvis, just a little bit. I'm not trying to muscularize anything. I'm just slowing down and letting the whole body participate rather than the head doing everything. Again, lifting the head just 1/8 of an inch. I still feel the skin close, the skin of the hand close to the head. Look over that right shoulder. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe it's just a movement in the eyes. And slowly lower back down. And relax. Shoulders, neck, arms, legs. And then I'm just going to lift my head back up to center, change my hands, and look the other direction. So my right cheek is on my left hand's on my right hand. And back at soft hips, arms. And then I'm going to again let the body get heavy. I'm just letting the body settle as the head starts to slowly, slowly lift. Again, I'm still aware of the contact, head to the hand. And then just glance over that left shoulder. And then slowly, slowly, slowly lower that head back down. Relaxing shoulders, forearms, neck, head, hips, legs. Right, ideally it's a full body organization, that even the legs and feet are involved. So again, foot, so whole body heavy. Feet, hips, arms, hands. Head starts to lift. And just minimally, I'm still keeping contact, skin to skin, separating that contact, just barely holding there. Look over the left shoulder. And then slowly, slowly lower down. Good, very gently lifting the back of the head, looking towards the hands, come back onto the forearms. So instead of taking shoulder blades towards the spine, I'm going to let my right shoulder move forward in space towards the wall in front of me, and the left shoulder move back in space. And then come back to neutral, and then right shoulder comes back in space towards the foot, left shoulder comes forward towards the wall in front of me. Head neutral, center. This time right shoulder comes forward again slowly, and I'm going to let my head turn and look towards the left shoulder. And then head and shoulder come to center. Left shoulder forward, right shoulder back, head is following the right shoulder. And center. And head is following the left shoulder as the right shoulder comes forward, left shoulder comes back. Neutral. One more time, right shoulder comes back, eyes follow, or head just follows the movement. Left shoulder came forward, and then center. This time stack your hands, forehead to your hands. Just pause and breathe. Okay, so palms under shoulders. Toes can turn under if you want. Just push up onto hands and knees. Walk the knees forward. And I'm just going to come. So I'm going to take, we're going to do two slightly longer holds, but I'm going to take my 2 blocks and my blanket. So I'm going to take my blanket the longer way and just fold it in half. Bringing my feet together, soles of feet together, knees apart. So the feet can be close to the body, or they can be further out, or maybe try one of each. So maybe we'll come in and we're going to do it twice, one with more props and one without. So feet, first one, I am going to use a little more support, so I'm just going to lift the knees up, take the blanket over the feet and under the outer thighs. Right, so I have a little support on my outer thighs, and blocks come forward. And I'm just going to let my body fall forward, torso over the legs. And you could be back here, and that's okay. And maybe that means you need to slide your feet forward. And then wherever I get to, I'm going to support my head, even if that means my blocks are on my feet, right? I just want a little bit more support. Hands can be either on the legs or on the floor. head is supported, right? You can change the blocks in a few different ways to get the support that you want. Right, it's even nice if the blocks are stacked and the end of the block that's on top lifts so that your block tips towards the feet. Right, so there's a slight slant for your forehead to rest on. Letting your breath slow down. Feeling your shoulders soften, your back ribs, lower back, feet, outer legs, inner legs. Good, last couple breaths here. And then use your hands on the floor just to gently round yourself up to sit. And then I'm going to take my blanket out, my blocks off to the side, and change. I'm just going to bring my feet closer. Maybe you want to bring your feet further out. Just affects different parts of the hips. And letting the hands, right, my hands are on the floor again just to help slow everything down. The intensity, the stretch, the weight. Letting the head drop forward. I'm not going to stay as long. Maybe the elbows move to the side. Again, you're just using the arms to help navigate the weight. Distributing the weight so it feels doable, easy. Let's just turn the head super slow, looking to the right. Maybe just the nose turns to the right. You can keep your eyes closed. And center. And face turns to the left as you're letting the head hang forward. And center. And then hands back under shoulders and slowly round up. Good. And legs forward. Okay, so now I'm going to take my two blocks, bring them end to end on the lowest height, and then take my blanket and I'm going to fold it this way and then in half and put it so it's long and not so narrow, so not so wide, and put it on top of my blocks. Okay, and have that close to my body. Doesn't have to be right up against the hip, but I'm going to take my feet now and tuck them to the left. And this is now my bolster. I'm going to just tip my bolster so the end that's furthest away from me is closer to the knees than directly in line with the hip, right? There's a little angle. And then hands on either side of your bolster, your made bolster. And I'm going to turn and I'm going to bring my left cheek and my left breast onto the bolster to the best of my ability, right? So that left hip lifts. You can even separate the knees even more if that helps. Slide the blocks even further forward and turn, laying down the left cheek. So I almost made it to my left breast, not quite. You can pick up the hips and pull them out from under. You can come up and lengthen out away from your pelvis. Again, slowing the breath down. Making any adjustments you need to make. And just letting the weight of your body start to sink into the support. The floor, the block, blanket, bolster. See if you can slow your breath down. If this is too much on your head or your neck, you can always look to the left or switch back and forth a little as your neck softens, as your body gets used to the rotation. Just keep trying to soften, settle, sink. Last few breaths here, just following your breath, right? Following the intelligence of the breath. Feeling the softness in your belly, your throat, your hands, your feet, even in your face and eyes. And then let's very slowly bring palms under shoulders and gently round up to sit. Stretch your legs forward. Let's take the block to the other side. I'm just switching my legs around just so you can see, but you may want to keep your feet on the sticky mat. And you can always put an extra blanket down just so the floor is warm and soft. And again, I'm going to take my feet off to the right side. Maybe the knees are apart, and it helps with the rotation of the pelvis. Knees could even be further towards the blanket bolster. And then I'm again turning, now right cheek, turning to the left. Right cheek down. Good. I want to be far enough forward so I can either scoop the hip out from right that left hip away from the left ribs, or I can pull myself forward so I end up again on that outer left hip. And ideally, sometimes we just want to stay until the body starts to soften. Right, that all the resistance or not knowing just starts to settle out. Back of body. Again, the back of the ribs supple, as if that connection between the ribs and the spine starts to soften. The support under the ribs you can soften into. The rotation of the neck you can soften into, and if you can't, you can always turn and look over the right shoulder. Maybe ease into this slowly. Feet soften, hands soften, eyes, tongue, jaw, back of neck, tops of shoulders. And breath easy, body easy. Starting to feel like you're not holding yourself up, but you're being held up. Good, and then very slowly, hands under shoulders, and gently peel yourself back up to sit. Okay, so while we're here, let's just do one child's pose. So again, knees are a little wider. I'm just going to bring this shape under my ribs and head. Right, so similar support, just different position with the legs. So buttocks on the heels, ribs on a bolster, head to one side. Again, just utilizing the breath very gently. Right, there's an effortless effort. Right, that this becomes a skill, this way of soothing the body, kind of coaxing the body into a softer way of being, as well as staying present. How do we let the breath be engaged and quite diffuse? How do we let the body soften as we are still present for our experience? Cannot asleep. Let's try to head to the other side for a few breaths. Right, not diminishing or leaving our experience, but engaging differently with our experience. Softening outer hips, outer thighs, knees, shins, feet, back of pelvis, base of pelvis, inner thighs, belly, jaw, shoulders, and then keeping that softness, hands under shoulders, and just gently press yourself up to sit. I'm just going to take this bolster shape, turn it so it's perpendicular to my mat so I can lay down. And I'm going to start with my feet on that height, just to let the back of the pelvis, ribs, head settle. You can always, again, lay a blanket down. The softness feels really nice. Or allowing the breath to help you soften into the surface that you're on. Right, sometimes the feedback from the harder surface is nice. And then when you're ready, straightening your legs, you can let your legs be supported by the bolster. Find the place that works for you. Arms either away from the body, palms up or down, or hands on the body. Again, present with your experience. And allowing your body to soften into the experience. The breath present with the body. Noticing when the mind becomes more captivating, and come back to breath, body, that dance. That there's a certain amount of effort and release required to inhale and exhale. Receptivity and invitation. And emptying. Releasing. Allowing the experience of the body to be valid. But the softness in the arms and the legs. Right, is needed for the flow of nutrients through the limbs and even from limbs back to the heart. Same with the pelvis, that softness in pelvis. Right, allowing nutrition in and waste out. Shoulders, organs,